What up?
Hey! What's up, man?
Chillin', man. Living the dream.
Okay, so it was maybe 2 years ago since we spoke last, I believe. Maybe
Oh,
a little
wow.
more.
Yeah.
Time is flying.
Hopefully all good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, man. All good developments.
Good.
What's been going on in the world of Dr. Chris recently?
Launched a professional conference. We're moving into year 4. And
SHA, is that it?
yes. Yeah. Launched that year 4. That's going awesome. And through them, we started a doctoral program, which I'm have put together through them and getting all the certifications in order and starting to teach. So moving in this like powerful professional academic area. I've still got the clinical practice, but moving away from media stuff and kind of moving academic.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Sexual Health Alliance, right? That was,
Yeah.
I think you're rocking with it when we spoke last, but it sounds like maybe it's growing some legs and started to expand a bit more, yeah?
Yeah, they're solid. I love working with them. I've been done for like a decade at this point.
And still working with patients one-on-one too.
Yeah. That's my main focus, clinical.
One question before we hop into the topic today about the performance stuff, which I'm really excited about talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything in your practice that you've seen crop up more often in the last couple of years in terms of working with people individually with their relationship with their sexuality? What's new in people's sex life?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say a lot more interest in non-monogamy, which isn't surprising. New elements of, we don't really have a good, more neutralized term. So I'm going to kind of use a historical term, but more affairs, sexual indiscretions as a result of technological use and abilities. And the never ending, ever ongoing, one of the battles I will take on clinically until I leave this planet is still this idea of this expectation on the male body to perform and function a certain way that very much lives outside of what is realistic and should truly be expected.
That is the core of the conversation I'd like to talk with you about, man. What's fresh on the mind in that zone?
Yeah. Well, it's not so much fresh, which hurts my heart because I was reflecting on this a couple hours ago. I was doing an interview for something and I was telling this anecdote about how this could have been like 15 years ago. It's really hard to kind of place it in time, but I was speaking at a huge conference in New York City and it was a sexological conference, using that in a very broad term. So it was doctors, therapists, sex, toy and product vendors, and there were two top billings. And it was, Dr. So-and-so talking about sexual dysfunctions. And at the same time was Dr. Chris Donaghue talking about the myth of sexual dysfunctions. And I have the image in my head of the billboard. And I was like,
that's awesome.
I say
like
more.
Yeah.
And I was like, pay-per-view. And I was kind of like, that image is my career. And here I am 15 years later, still in some ways preaching and promoting the same piece. I would say another thing that I'm putting a little more focus on is so historically, I was very much someone who wanted to focus on the positive aspects of porn and pornography because clinically and culturally, all people did was talk about the negatives and everyone's a sex addict. And I just didn't want to be a part of that because there are some positive usages and there's a space for porn. Now, I am actively looking also at some of the negatives of porn as a result of seeing a rising syndrome that we don't have a name for, born out of all of that.
And how would you describe the syndrome? What is it without the name?
Oh my God. I shouldn't have said that because I knew you were going to ask. So it's kind of a culmination of a couple threads of things. So on one hand, I love that porn is, let me go broad. So the positives of porn, I'll kind of start there and then like work my way in. Positives of porn are, it gives people sexuality. And we have these things in our culture called desirability politics and market rate. And every culture has what they deem to be what is necessary to be perceived as desirable as a partner, relationally and sexually. And
Yep.
those don't change much culture to culture all through time periods. They're pretty common. So porn gives people that, for whatever reason, don't align with that access to sexuality. Not everyone is able to find partnered sex because of their body shape and size and their identity and all sorts of things, disability. So for some people, that is their sex life in totality. For others, it's a really safe space for them to explore that which they either can't find a partner to engage in, or they don't have the confidence to really seek that out. And so it's a very protected area for sexual exploration, because you can
Sure.
try something and not have to really own whatever that might mean, especially in the realm of like homophobia, where I'm working with more and more hetero identified men that do have an interest in transsexuality or penises. And that's a really interesting thing. They aren't secretly gay, and we can talk about what that might even be about. So I love that. It's also a place for people to just kind of like really raise their general sex positivity by encountering more sexuality, because they might have a limited exposure. But then we move into, what are the dark sides of that? Because for individuals even that have a partner, that's a place where some people spend more time being sexual.
Yeah.
And it creates unrealistic expectations still,
Hmm.
even though everyone will say they know that there are specific people chosen to perform in porn, and usage of medications and start, stop, and all sorts of things. And so it still very much occupies a space in the male psyche and the female psyche as to
Yeah.
what we expect a partner to look like and how they function. I can see you're thinking hard. Tell me what's coming up for you.
Yeah, lots of stuff, man. Like that's one of the things that I was thinking about when I was kind of thinking about our conversation together. Is I know you've been porn positive and shared a
Yes.
lot of really good stuff about that, and for those reasons, access for people, exploration for people that are
Yes.
wanting to know different things about their own sexuality. But it's hard, especially in the perspective of this conversation being about removing the pressure to perform.
Yes.
And I'm wondering about if that negative outweighs it, to where you're like, porn is, because it's visually perceived, that's how you take it in. It's
Yes.
going to be optimized for that. Like, the WWE of as pornography is what it is, right? So it's like, it's hard to really see it as like a place for education and exploration
Yes.
other than just pure exposure. Like if you think you might be into a certain thing, you can kind of watch it and check it out. But I don't know. It's like, in my opinion, man, that on top of it being such a super stimulus that then retrains the brain to passively receive sexuality instead of engaging
Mhm.
and creating sexuality. That to me seems to be like
Yes.
one of the
Yes.
trickiest parts of it.
And to kind of expand on the use of that word passivity, it's also very much reinforcing, um, and I might want to clarify this, but it's very much reinforcing a very objectified relationship to
Mhm.
sexuality, because it isn't a real time person. And so intimacy isn't present or required. And so people are practicing very distal, passive, objectified sexual engagement. So then when a real time person emerges,
What do
it's
I
a
do with
very
this?
different experience. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of the things that I think is really fascinating. Just the idea that how you masturbate, how you solo pleasure is practice for sex. And
100%.
so if you are just sitting in a chair and just kind of like anxiously yanking at yourself vigorously while you just
Yes.
passively take in stimulation, that's not really going to translate that well when you go to and meet with a real person.
And that's the psychological lack of translation, right? But there's also the physical lack of translation, which is to mimic what you just did. When people with penises masturbate, they hold, traditionally, of course, they hold their pelvis still, and they're using their
Yeah.
hand or perhaps a sleeve. When you're penetrating a partner, it's the complete inverse. You
Yeah.
are needing to use your pelvis in a very fluid back and forth way. So you
Yeah.
are requiring a fluidity in your pelvic area that you are not practicing. And that's why it's also physically not transferable. And if you are training your nervous system to require a certain position or style to ejaculate, a human in a different form, method as well, is not going to be the same.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important thing for people to understand is that, like you said, when you're training your nervous system to require a certain position and or type of stimulation and even
Yes.
endless type of stimulation to such an intense degree, then you're so needy sexually. Like you have such a specific way you need to be engaged with in order to have a climax and enjoy pleasure, that there's no space for the other person. There's no space for you guys to engage and play and allow the moment to expand. You really have to default to using them and kind of like including them on your own personal routine instead of playing together.
Yeah. And then you can even push it even further, because when you are practicing sex through masturbation, you are very much focused only on stimulation and release, period. That is the main goal. And so you're rapidly going through different forms of pornography, trying to find the highest threshold of release and pleasure.
Yeah.
When you are with your partner, and perhaps your partner of 10, 15, 20 years, is a very different experience, and it can't match the same threshold. And so you have to be able to respond and enjoy a lower threshold, and perhaps it not being about stimulation even, but more about connection, intimacy, pleasure. Because sometimes when you're stimulating yourself, you're even bypassing pleasure and you're just going for a strong hit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The idea that there are multiple different forms of pleasure is an interesting one to consider. Not that kind of sharp, like, like edging for hours is not a good thing to do for your body's sensitivity. It's just not a good thing.
100%.
Like
100%.
bad practice.
100% a bad practice. And the other piece to that is, oh man, I forgot to write it down because you just kind of triggered another thought in my mind about that. All that to say, unless that thought comes back to me, is that knowing all of that, for someone who still, of course, wants to include porn and masturbation, there are ways to try to utilize it differently so as to not encounter all of those problems. And I think that's some of the clinical work I do with my clients, because porn is still a very popular outlet for many people in our culture.
Yeah. I want to touch on the nourishing aspect of sexuality, and then come back to pornography and it being a super stimulus, and potentially being people might be vulnerable for abuse with it in a way that robs them of their sexuality. So one cool thing that Alex A. Welsh shared with me on the podcast we shared together. I'm not sure you're familiar with him. I would definitely recommend checking out his YouTube channel. Great guy. Teaches a lot of practice on how to refresh the idea of what it means to connect sexually. And he kind of puts it in two buckets. He's like, you can have sex for pleasure and entertainment, or you can have sex for nourishment, deep emotional nourishment. And that to me feels like the swap you're talking about, where the solo sex stuff is really more like the analogy comes to mind for me is like, you set up the most incredible VR headset game set thing where there's a vibrating chair and it's all this incredible stimuli, but you're by yourself, versus playing checkers with someone you really love. And it's fun. It's interactive. It's not nearly as stimulating, but it's interactive, and it nourishes you in a different way. I try not to, I don't want to organize it in a hierarchy, because I feel like that immediately puts shame on lower levels, but that's definitely how I think about it, is that like you have, the ways you can use sexual energy as like escapism, like you're not even turned on or horny. It has nothing to do with sexuality, more about just chasing the dopamine release of like doom scrolling with internet pornography or sex or people, and then real pleasure, and then some type of connection with people that nourishes your heart.
But make it even scarier. Because
okay, please. Let's do it.
What you just said and what we put together historically already was troublesome for me as a clinician who works with, oh, you left. I looked down and I looked up and I was by myself. I forget it's podcast. We just, it's fluid. It's casual.
Yeah.
Historically that already was of concern, right? Because I do a lot of couples therapy in addition to, sex therapy and individual therapy. And a lot of the work is around compassion, concern and understanding the impact on other intimacy. It's already a cultural issue. You have to now take what we just itemized as concerning and place it in the newer context of current culture, which is relationality is dipping already as a use of people using technology as a means to stay connected. And for some people, that is the main method of which they maintain relationality. Historically, you had to sit on the phone with someone and say, how are you? And spend some time with them. You perhaps met up with them. And now through FaceTime and texting and DMing, that is how some people, I have a teenager, I'm watching how that is, how a lot of teens are maintaining over the course of their weekend, their friendships. I, as a teenager, went out and saw them. We didn't have phones or cell phones. So we're already starting to build a culture that is objectifying, that is low tolerance of intimacy. And then you add the sexual piece. And I'm seeing more and more problems of narcissism coming in my office, low tolerance of intimacy. It's concerning. And so again, the problem isn't like get rid of porn. That's not going to happen. But let's be more thoughtful about our use of it and consider impact. And kind of, as you pointed out, trying to also just develop a better relationship with sexuality, because I want people to approach their partner with a new mindset as well, which is where we come back to that performance piece, because sex isn't supposed to be a performance. Sex isn't supposed to be something you're doing for or to someone. That's sex, maybe not eroticism. And my field uses those words at times to differentiate. Performative is more like you're trying to do this thing, sex. And then eroticism is more of this embodying these other nourishing elements that we kind of talked about.
Can you tell me more about that? That's interesting, the idea of
So I'm talking past 3 or 4 years, I've been speaking at a lot of different professional conferences and really trying to get this concept out in the world called sexual bypassing. And it's very much looking at how a lot of people are becoming more sex positive, which is more of like a horizontal, and they're more confident exploring and talking, oh, I'm non-monogamy, I'm bisexual, I'm exploring transsexuality, I'm exploring kink. Awesome. But we're not going deep. It's very mindless. It's very passive. And so we're using sex as a way to bypass actual eroticism. People are reducing themselves down to labels. People, again, are so focused on functioning. My entire field of psychotherapy is moving towards a medical model, which is about fixing. It's not about insight. It's not about transformation. It's not about looking at why you are so focused on performance. It's not looking at why you aren't differentiated or confident enough to say there's nothing wrong with the way my body's functioning. Erectile dysfunctions is not a real thing. It's erectile disappointments. There is no right way for your body to function. Porn has given people a model that isn't accurate. Yeah.
When you said the medical model, you said that your whole entire work is trying to push against it?
No. So the field of psychotherapy and psychology has historically, a lot of it anyway, has felt the need to validate itself by using medical terms and terminology to feel legitimate. And psychotherapy is truly an art and it's a philosophy. And we're not trying to cure and fix. We're not trying to conform, right? We're not trying to perform normative or normal. It should be philosophically, who am I and what's happening for me and what do I need and what's right for me? So I'm going to these conferences, including the one I put on, and everyone just wants these quick, easy magic bullets, and they want to bypass using their sexuality to learn and to grow. I want partners to say to their partner, I'm going to back you off of shaming my penis and how it's functioning. Its functioning isn't about how much love or attraction I have for you, honey. It's very much dependent on other forces. And I have a tongue and I have fingers and we have toys, and we can have a beautiful sexuality that doesn't require me performing what I and you have been taught needs to happen for us to feel like we are healthy or a real couple.
Yeah. There is so much juice there, man, for especially guys to
squeeze it.
Yes, because
juice it.
Generally, I feel like guys have a hard time with this because, like, I feel like it's more obvious when a guy's not up for the moment. When you don't perform, you don't have an erection, the game's over, and it can really feel like the cards are stacked on you.
Because we don't have a comparative model through which to perceive of any other way of being. The only model we have is what we see in porn, which is constant erections on demand, needed as long as possible, and then nothing else.
Yeah. That's the hard part, man, about that's the hard part about porn being about using pornography in your regular life is like, even if you go into it thinking, I know this is show and shams. I know this is the WWE of sex, but like, you know, you then think I'm supposed to be able to just be I think you used this term actually last time we talked, a sexual gladiator.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, be a sexual gladiator. Just I gotta be the LeBron James. Yeah, the LeBron.
That's right.
It's not real, man. And I think the opportunity for connection, like sharing that moment of sensuality with somebody else, is beautiful. It's so much more beautiful, so much more nourishing, and also too, your body reacts so much better to sensuality when you are able to put it on the shelf and say, like, I'm not concerned with my erection. Like whether it comes, it goes.
But that's what we call a paradoxical intervention in my field. And that means that you actually have a higher likelihood of getting the erection you want and think you need when you take that off the table as what's required. Because if we look at it neurophysiologically, erections are the parasympathetic system, which requires safety, security, and calmness. People assume it's the opposite, right? You're aroused. It must be sympathetic. No, it's parasympathetic. You need to be safe and calm. And if you're going in nervous, anxious, performative, thinking I need to get hard, I need to stay hard, you are turning on the wrong nervous system state that is actually, in fact, required. And so by backing off and saying, I'm here to do nothing but enjoy you, I'm going to use my tongue, I'm going to use my fingers, I'm going to use toys, we're going to engage in full body sexuality.
Yeah.
Get there.
And even too, like, I'm going to pay really close attention to how my body feels in this time together and what feels really good on my skin, even the sheets that I'm laying in or the temperature of the room or the sounds of your voice, and just be with that. And whatever happens as a byproduct will happen as a byproduct of that.
Yes. Because what you just talked about, I think, is something we need culturally anyway. And there's this smaller part of the sexological field called pleasure activism. You probably won't hear much about it. And it's what you just said. It's really trying to say, let me center pleasure, not just in my sexuality, which is to back off of performance, because my penis isn't needed for pleasure. Penetration isn't needed for pleasure. My entire body is an erogenous zone. My entire body, when touched, licked, fondled, has the capacity to give me pleasure. But it also is about, how do I feel in my clothing? How do I feel in the bed sheets? What is the environment around me like? Do I need to change the music? What do I smell? What do I hear? Like, really just centering pleasure. And the profound impact that had on me is I started dressing differently. I was like, I'm wearing fitted dress shirts that I feel awkward and tight in. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm wearing pants that aren't comfortable because of the material, or shoes. And I started dressing more casual, right? So it's like this generalized sense of just center pleasure in totality. But the antidote is in backing off of that idea that there's something I'm here and I need to do. But you also are going to need to educate your partners on that, because women are some of the worst enforcers because of their own anxiety, thinking your erection is how much you love or are attracted to me, and it is not. And they create an unsafe environment.
So much. Yeah.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with you, honey. It's just my body. Like,
that's right. And their sexual system anatomically is internal. And so they aren't aware of the healthy ebbs and flows of the arousal system, because they don't have an externalized indicator like a penis. And so they're not familiar with that.
That's another thing that I think is so important for especially guys to hear, is that like the flow of sexual energy, the flow of eroticism in a moment, there's this natural ebb and flow to it. It is this natural wave. So you're going to feel this nice, strong energy and passion and enjoyment. And then your receptivity is going to kind of close in a little bit. The constant friction is going to create kind of a numbing effect, if anything. And so you got to pull back to refine. And that's the subtlety that I feel like is really important for us to bring to our partners as lovers, is when there is less pleasure and less sensation, reground it. Like, let's bring it back to a slow tempo. Let's settle back in. Let's pause for a bit until we feel that resensitivity come back in, instead of trying to add more stimulation to try to create it. I love I think not Julie Allen, Sex with Emily Gerbowski. What's her last name?
Emily Morse.
Emily Morse. She in one of her books that she wrote, she describes pleasure as a cat. You got to let it come to you.
Oh, beautifully said, and beautifully what you said, because when people are anxious and not getting the erection they think they need. You're right. They do. They go for harder, faster, more.
The end.
And it's what you said. You need to slow down, go slower. I mean, one of the number one problems also is a lot of men aren't even aware that arousal isn't so black or white. They often attempt to engage in penetrative sex when they're not at total arousal level 10 and they're at like a 6 or a 7 because they move so quick. They're so anxious. They want to get it in there. I'm erect. And it's like, no, slow down. Let it build more. Let it build more, right? It's emotional and psychological. It's not just physical. Let those levels emerge. Also, even though we're honoring the backing off and backing down and slowing down, there's still a piece of stop being so penis obsessed. What are your hands doing? Yeah. What is your mouth doing while you're penetrating or not? Add other senses to spike more psychological arousal too, or physical.
Yeah, and by doing that, you're gonna really move into a place where you're feeling more. Now you're feeling with your body. You're focused on feeling instead of focusing on performing. And then what creates the arousal? The feeling, the perception of the energy. And so. And that's one thing too that I think is important is that, pleasure, the ability to perceive pleasure is a skill set in a way. Like it's a practice of sorts, much like meditation is a practice. You can close your eyes and sit for a second and think you grasp tranquility and peace. Not so much. In the same way, like when you masturbate, when you have sex, when you sit outside in the sun and drink a cup of coffee, if you sit calmly and say, where does this feel good in my body? And can I really attune myself to those feelings? That translates tremendously to sex because then you have this developed sense of I think it's interoception, the ability to feel inside the body.
Yes, interoception and interoception, yes. And that requires a lot of confidence though. Because when a lot of people are sitting with their partner, especially a new partner, you have to have that confidence to do that, to really slow down and be in the moment. And you at times are going to have to settle yourself down and back off and settle your partner down. And so that's why I tell my clients, sometimes the best way to approach it is perhaps what you just said, where we work on it in a safer, easier, non-sexual context, working on saying, how does that feel? And being more in your body and being more in the environment and saying like, what do I hear? What do I smell? And then moving it into the sexual realm. But a lot of this work will require at times a buy-in with your partner or not always doable in hookup culture. I have a lot of guys that come to me and they're like, I'm hooking up these girls and I just want to be able to bang them out. And I'm like, not going to happen. Just that mindset. You're bypassing pleasure. And you're going for a performance route, and that will never work because you're in the wrong nervous system state. You're not allowing the psychological and emotional elements to be there. Can some people do that? Sure, but maybe not you. And you might need more intimate relational sex.
And two, it doesn't respect sexuality as something like a separate entity of sorts that you're interacting with. Like your own sexuality, you have a relationship with your sexuality in some way, shape, or form. If you want to have a healthy relationship with your sexuality, you're kind of implying that it's not directly under your control. You have, so like to say I have a goal for this, I want to go out and just, get hard, stay hard and be hard with whoever I want as long as I want and perform well to get this. I don't know, they're going to applaud you and, like tell you're the greatest or something. I'm not sure what you're going for there, but it doesn't give you the opportunity to experience these unique experiences of sensuality that your own sensuality has to offer you. Where, how much better is it to walk out of a lovemaking session and say like, it kind of blew my mind. I didn't even really, I have very few words to say what just happened and how that went for me versus going in there and things going according to plan.
That's right. And that's why the porn masturbation piece is so important because as you kind of called it, you're practicing. Why don't we start to practice that which would better serve us in partnered sexuality as well? And that's where the better use of porn and masturbation comes in, where slow down. See how it feels. Be in your body by acknowledging the body, by actually feeling your body, and put less focus on what you're looking at. Perhaps ready for this one? It's going to blow your mind. Maybe try masturbating without porn, right? And then you are fully in your body. You are fully in,
We just lost all of our listeners, Chris. I'm sorry. They went to
drop down to zero.
Man, that's so
part of it. Yeah.
And two, like if your body, I mean, this is one of the most fascinating things to me. Everything you want to feel, my man, is in your body. All
That's
the
right.
feelings you want to have, even to like, this might be a little bit too far out there, but like, what you're chasing with your eyes is kind of just a symbolic reminder of this sensual energy that you're hoping it evokes inside.
That's
So
right.
you're chasing down what you have lost disconnected with. And the harder you chase is just kind of representing your lack of connection inside. So let's just
Go back to
to
yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can't, that's another thing that Alex A. Welch talked about that was really, really helpful to learn about. Is just intensity has a dead end, man. Like if you're trying to add in more tabs, more HD, more stimulation, more like harder, more intense, at some point you habituate to that, you can't get no further.
100%, but that's unfortunately what our culture pushes us towards.
Yeah.
When you look at the studies, and again, forgive me for those that are in film because this is not the right verbiage, but they're starting to use there's some word or formula to how often they need to do camera movements and shots to keep someone paying attention. They don't do a tight shot on one scene for a long period of time. It's pop, 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 pop. They're amping it up more and more because people are finding it boring and slow if it's not constantly new shots. Yeah. That is overloading us. That is so much pleasure seeking that I'm worried we're going in the wrong direction. And that's why I decided like I have to start talking more about pornography, and I'm putting together a course. It's for clinicians. I guess anyone would be able to attend, kind of around how to clinically start to incorporate what we're talking about and kind of reorient, because again, most people's sexuality is being practiced through pornography and masturbation, and culture is just putting us in this direction of more, faster, harder, and it's horrifying.
It's really hard. It's really, really hard to do that. One of the tips that I think is really helpful for the performance anxiety stuff is when you're masturbating, take a break and go get a snack mid masturbation. Go and make a cup of coffee. Like if the room is a little too cold, turn it down. If you want a certain blanket, go get it. Like, don't feel like you're chained to this arousal that you've conjured up. Train it to not need so much constant stimulation to stay up.
100%. Use your other hand on your body.
Yeah.
men forget they have a body. Men forget their whole body's origin. I do this exercise. It comes out of the sexological world. It's called body mapping, and it's in service of looking at where body shame exists and sex shame and trauma. And they basically draw a body, a stick figure, and I'll say, circle the parts of your body that you're comfortable having looked at and engaged sexually. What do you think it is that the bulk of men circle? The penis area. And you're like,
don't look at my penis.
Notice the entire vast geography of your body that goes unengaged but has the capacity. Why do we have such a reduced down space of comfort? Homophobia, toxic masculinity, femphobia, heterocentricity, all these norms that constrict us down to the penis area, which again works against us. So when you're masturbating, touch other parts of your body. I'll tell men, use a vibrator on yourself. They're like, what do you mean, anal? No, using a vibrator on your shaft, using a vibrator on your balls, using a vibrator rubbing your thigh while you're masturbating, incorporating different sensations and feelings, expanding.
And bruh, too, here, so like, why? Because if you are a guy having sex with women, that's their bodies. Their bodies are like alive and have so much more nerve endings. So if you want to be a good lover, bro, you gotta be versatile. You have to be able to luxuriate in sensations of the body. Your skin needs to be sensitive to the point of eroticism. So
I love the word luxuriate.
Luxuriate, my fan. So like, you gotta, while you're out there, man, drag your fingers, dog. You know what I'm saying? Don't jump right to the dick. It's not that yet. It's not that yet.
I agree.
You're training yourself to be at a different pace than the lovers. If you're having sex with women, you're training yourself to be a different pace than the lovers you're interacting with. And it's a disservice.
It is.
Yeah.
And like we said, it's getting worse. And I sometimes, when I'm at these conferences or I lecture a lot and I teach at some different schools at times, and like, when I say some of this, you should see the looks you get, because it sounds so traditional or outdated. And I do want us to go backwards in that way.
Bro, the fact that you're being called traditional and outdated is blowing my mind right now, but it's so true because you're like, let's
never would have thought in my life, right? But the punk rock 19-year-old in me pushing on all the boundaries, mind is blown. But you were going to take us somewhere. Where did your thinking go? You're about to
I just like the whole conversation we're having around this today centers around the idea of entertainment versus connection, because I think that's really, really important. And I think it's nice to know that, like, you know, there's nothing wrong with sexual entertainment. You know, there's nothing wrong with using the WWE to watch it and be like, that shit's crazy. Like,
that's right.
But it's just about being able to play from both sides of the fence. Can you swap gears?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Have a full range of skill set, right? Because if we only have one option, you don't have choice. You're limited. Have all the abilities, and then you're actively choosing, because there is a world in which using sex as a coping mechanism because you had a hard day is very positive and okay if you have other resources, right? Yeah. It's okay to use it sometimes to self-soothe. It's okay to use it sometimes for needed ego enhancement. But I don't want that to always be the process, and I don't want you to be that limited. And so that's what I say to my clients. I say to them, I just want you to have a full range of skills and capacities, and then you're truly able to go in and out. Because through the stages of our lives, or the stages of our lives with a partner and sexuality, we're going to need that. Our bodies are going to change. We're going to take medications, and they're going to limit our erectile functioning. They're going to limit the use of certain parts of our body. They're going to limit the positions we can be in, because our knees get bad, our backs get bad, our partners' backs get bad. Like, we need that through the lifespan. You have to think long haul. And one of the stats I heard early on in my career, probably like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, was through a urologist who I respect at UCLA. And he was saying, and it still remains true, every decade, like when we're in our 30s to 40s to 50s, expect for a healthy penis another 10% increase in disappointments with your erections. So when you're in your 50s, half the time it's not going to do what you want. That's healthy. That is not erectile dysfunction like the commercials tell you. In your 60s, 60% of the time that bad boy's not going to work the way you want. Even with meds, listen to this one. I don't know if everyone knows this. Even with meds, if the psychological emotional that we're talking about isn't robust or in play, it will override the pill you're taking. Those pills, the Viagras, and they're going to start expanding, are not bulletproof. Number one, you still need to get aroused. They maintain the blood. You have to get aroused. They help you stay aroused once aroused. You still have to get yourself aroused, number one. Number two, the emotional psychological can override them at any time. And number three, you're shaming your body. It's body negative, it's sex negative, and through the duration of your life, expect more of that. Normalize that. I tell the younger guys that. Get familiar, having more fluidity. Your penis is going to let you down. It's supposed to.
Yeah, and I know we're hanging out a lot on the erectile disappointment stuff, and I guess it's a good thing for the conversation, because, like, the moment don't stop because your erections kind of, deflating a bit, like. And I've noticed in my own personal life, the more I'm okay with that, the easier it is to get back. The more I don't get it just
luxuriate.
Luxuriate,
man.
And
enjoy the time.
You get to a point, man, where you're so gangster, you let that shit go on purpose. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not worried about it. That's your goal. So
let it go on purpose. That's funny. I like that. That's good.
Then you have arrived, when you're like, so that might be an intentional practice of it. Like, really just swap it up. Maybe go to a place where you're giving that person pleasure, you're not focusing on yourself, and you let it go. And then you might give that person a really nice moment when they're like, oh, like, you still want to, whatever. And you're like, I'm good. And I think another part of that too is, and I think a lot of people need to hear this, is that the enjoyment of sex is not just the ejaculation at the end. It's like, and the more you move all of your focus to just that sharp pleasure ejaculation, or like David Data calls it, the sneeze of the genitals, like you lose all the pleasure and all the enjoyment that happens all throughout. And I think that, this might be the most challenging thing we might pose to guys in this conversation, but like, have sex where you don't ejaculate one time. Just try that. Or you just go like, I just enjoy this. And the analogy comes to mind to me is like, it'd be like rushing through a delicious meal just to feel full. You missed all the flavors, fam. The whole experience.
Yeah. Some of the interventions we use in sex therapy are taking orgasm off the table or taking penetration off the table so as to enhance confidence and find the joy and pleasure in not having to utilize those things, right? Because that's the bypassing when you're going in there, right? And there's other psychological pieces that show up in that. Because I'm first and foremost a psychotherapist, I'm always thinking in terms of psychological growth and transformation, and levels of differentiation, intimacy, tolerance, narcissism. Do you perceive your partners to be objects? If they're working on making them more of a subject and more of a person, then we definitely want to slow down and be in our body and take in that there's a person there. So there's like all these interesting peripheral psychotherapeutic resources that are also at play in this moment. And it's kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about, but yes to everything we're talking about, all to say that there's more going on than just the erotic in what we're talking about, possibly having people do more of. There's so much more growth in that. What's that?
What are you bringing up right now?
Well, one of the things I do a lot of couples work, like I said, and when I'm watching healthy communication and couples conflict, one of the number one stances that people take is they turn on each other. And they go from, Martin Buber is this, I think he's German, a German philosopher. And a lot of psychoanalytic theory is born out of some of his work on this concept called I-it versus I-thou relationships. And really the simplicity of it all is just, do you move through the world perceiving others as having a subjectivity, or do you objectify them? And in a lot of couples conflict, they turn their partner into an enemy, and they lose contact with the fact that they have feelings and how you approach what you're trying to say matters. And understanding that they have an entire inner world that might not be aligned with what you need. And I see that mirrored in sexuality when they're focused on penetration and their self-esteem is tied to that. And they're not taking in the fact that there's a person. And so there's just like this deeper work on other levels that comes into how someone has sex with someone. And that's why we look at a lot of times as to like, for instance, if we look at like mindful masturbation, which is one of the things I work with clients on so as to have a healthy relationship to all this, I'll say to them, before you have masturbation or sex with someone, ask yourself why. Why am I about to have sex with my partner? Please don't think that because it's your girlfriend or wife that it's inherently healthy or coming from a healthy place. Are you having sex because that's the only way you know how to stay connected, because you're not connected on any other levels? That's interesting and good to know. Are you having sex out of anxiety because you feel compelled to, because your partner's self-worth is tied to the fact that you want to fuck them all the time? That's important to work on and to know. Are you masturbating because you're lonely? Maybe connect with a person. Are you masturbating because you're bored? Maybe let's work on finding joy in other areas of your life. There's deeper psychological things in there that I don't want to just bypass by saying, let's get hard, stay hard, and fuck her, right?
Yeah.
And so like there's...
I just want to grab onto bypassing, because that's the concept you bring up, and I feel like I'm half understanding it when you talk about like move around all the beautiful stuff that's coming up out of the soul that has to do with your own eroticism, jump into the outcome. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yes. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Because what it's piggybacking on is there's, when I was like 16, 17, 18, it was a long time ago, I fell into Eastern philosophy, and it became a really powerful compass and anchor for me at this very rebellious punk rock time of my life.
Like Buddhism?
Yeah, Buddhism. And then it bumped into a little bit of Hinduism, but Buddhism, this is back in like, 1995, 1996. And I was thankful for it because my life was going to go in one of two directions when I was living in the East Village in Manhattan at this point in my life. And it went for good. So there was this concept in that world a little bit called spiritual bypassing. And it's really looking at how, especially in LA where I live, that some people will use spiritual concepts, not as a way to actually transform and become a better person, but as a way to bypass that and to instead reinforce and become a horrible person, right? In service of ego versus soul work, right? You're like, you get it? This is the sexual version of that. Bypassing is to not use your sexuality to really drop into self and pleasure, but using it as a technology to subvert.
And to like just having the warm curiosity towards yourself to be interested in what comes up. And like, you mentioned earlier with psychotherapy, I'm not a psychotherapist, but the idea we're not trying to cure anything. Like Thomas More in the book, The Care of the Soul, like it's just psyche therapos, care for the soul in a way that you're not going to solve anything. In that book, he talks about caring for the soul in a way that you care for someone who has a terminal illness. Like, you don't wish to solve it. You're just there to be with it as it moves through. Like, you're not gonna contort yourself into the perfect performance person that you would give yourself an A+ rating that you want to be. You are multifaceted with so much texture and so many dimensions. And the pleasure to really be had is in that of discovering who you are in all of its uniqueness, not in trying to get yourself to be who you want yourself to be.
Yes. And I believe it's him, and I believe it might be him in that book, who uses these terms to make a distinguish between those two positions of sex versus eroticism. That sex is that performative, functional, get it up, get it in, job to do. That eroticism is that soul, to use your word, warm, luxuriating. I have nothing. I'm not here to do anything but to be with and to connect and to find pleasure. And there's no right way. And that those two words really speak to sex is the bypassing of the eroticism. But why are we afraid of eroticism? Because that's the psychotherapy again. What is hard for you in imagining all the things that we're talking about doing? What does that say, right? And let's make meaning out of that. Almost like, to use this word again, bypassing is also when we get hung up on labels like I'm a dom, I'm a sub. No, you're not. You're most comfortable with one of those positions. You might have the habit of, so believe that that's who you are. That's a bypassing the fact that you have all the abilities. What makes you so afraid of being more passive with your female partner? What makes you afraid of being more dominant with your male partner as a female? Like, what is that anxiety about? Let's look at that. Let's heal that. Let's work through that, because we're all of these things. We all can give, we all can receive. I want men to be more receiving at times, more passive at times. I want women to be willing to be more dominant, right? That's we all have all that in us. So I think he makes that distinction perhaps too.
It's such a wonderful thing, Chris. Like, you want to give yourself the permission and the luxury of experiencing all different wonderful forms of sensuality and sexuality without attaching it to the sense of, I'm supposed to be the one in control here. I'm supposed to be one who's, leading the moment. I'm supposed to be one who's doing any type of doing. Instead, what if you relaxed a bit? What if you allowed your partner to take the lead, especially for guys? That could be really challenging. But there's a different kind of, like, do you think you're not giving your partner, if you're the one who's being kind of the dominant, do you think you're not giving your partner a really wonderful experience? If you think it's so wonderful, why don't you swap sides and receive it? Because if you think you're really giving it feels nice to be able to let loose and to open your heart and to allow someone to really care for you and to lead the moment and to direct the moment, then get on the other side of that. And that's only going to make you a better lover too, because you'll be able to see from both sides of the coin. And if
when you were physically demonstrating that, I'm a dude and I have to, what I feel in my body when I'm also thinking that way is I feel like tight and tense. And that again is the wrong nervous system state that we need to be in order to even get erect. Because erections are parasympathetic. We need to actually be soft and calm and connected. That is the antithesis of this, I'm going to fuck you. Like, that is the wrong nervous system. That works for some people. But for the people that are struggling with penetrative sex and staying hard and getting hard, you're in the wrong nervous system state. Try taking your time, letting your arousal go to a 10. Just because you're hard and erect doesn't mean you're at a 10. Go slower. And try to make sure you feel safe. In a lot of hookup culture, there isn't safety because I don't know you. We're here for one thing. I want to impress you. And that is tense. That is constricting. That is not the state we want to start from.
So interesting that it's just so interesting that, there is a degree of like, some people may have that in hookups. Some people have that immediate sense of dropping into the body, feel really comfortable, feeling really confident. And then some other people need in a relationship to feel that sense of safety and security. It just gives another coin in the jar of like having a really great partner to be with. I think I'm starting to understand something I was going to ask you about, which is a couple, like two things you mentioned. One, sex, for some people, sex is guided by their anxiety management. And you also mentioned that we have sex up until our level of development. Yes. Are you referring to the idea that, like, you're having sex within the constraints of what you're comfortable with doing, not in the sense of like, it's a real embodied no, where you're like, I tried that and it just was a no for me, but you're just like, that ain't me, bro. I ain't trying to do that. I'm gonna stay in this box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it makes me anxious to be in anything but that box.
I'm constrained
So,
by it. It's not
yeah.
you don't have a choice, like you said.
And that's that bypassing again. You're not being in your authentic true self. So the soundbite is for those that aren't with me and you, because we've sat before. Um, most people are having sex up to their level of development means they're having the sex that they can tolerate, because anything other than what they're doing would make them a little too anxious. And so they're just doing what's within the realm of what they're confident in. That's horrible. That's limiting. That's rigid. That's not great mentally, but that's also just not great performatively. Let's ask ourselves, why is that what I need? What part of me needs it to be that way? Why don't I have the capacity to be other than? What would it mean if I slowed down? What would it mean if I told my partner we're not going to have penetrative sex? What would it mean if I took a more passive role versus a more dominant role? Like, that's the anxiety management, and that's a horrible way to approach anything, but that's also the antithesis of pleasure. Pleasure is looseness. Pleasure is flow. Pleasure is, I don't know where we're going or what we're doing, but here we are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's like what a cool ideal to aim at. The idea that,
yes,
let's see if you can have intimacy with someone where you really don't have much idea what's about to happen next.
Yes.
And then you're being moved by this energy in your body that almost has a life of its own. That is such an incredible way to experience lovemaking. Fucking is when you feel like you're participating with someone else in this energy that you guys have kind of summoned up together, that you're both being taken by.
Versus when I hear someone say, I know what all women like, I'm like, whoa, red flag, because they're all different. They all feel more pleasure in different parts of their body with different measures of intensity, speed. That's number one. Number two, I also imagine they're going to do what I jokingly call the 1, 2, 3, 4. First, we're going to kiss, then I'm going to touch her boobs, then I'm going to finger her, then I'm going to penetrate her. Yawn. Right? Like, all that. So, like, what if we started at step number 3 and then went to number 2 and then went to number 1? Because what's really great about sex, the smallest changes and tweaks have profound impacts on our pleasure. We don't all need to get in a monkey suit and swing from chandelier to amp up the pleasure of our sex if we're bored. Switch up where you begin, switch up where you end, switch up the expectation. Yeah. And as you just said, be guided by looking. The best sex is this. You walk into the room. The best sex is this. You're a virgin every time you show up to even the same partner you've been with. Because I don't know what I want today. I don't know what they want today. I don't know what we're going to do. We're virgins again. I don't know what they're going to be open for. I work with women that are like, hey, I had my period. My vagina right now isn't a source of pleasure. It's a source of pain and annoyance. I'd love it to be otherwise, et cetera, et cetera. The best sex is when you walk into the room and you look at your partner and you go, what would turn me on to imagine doing to them? And really being guided by that authenticity. And maybe you just want to, not to be graphic, maybe you want to just bury your face between their legs. And it would just feel really good to imagine yourself doing that, to look up at them, looking down at you doing that. Yeah. That's the other thing. Make eye contact. Connect with them as you're going down on them. Have your partner connect with you as they're going down on you, right? Like, bring all of the senses in.
Yeah. That right there is just like, I think we'll land it on that. Asking yourself, what would be really hot for me to do right now? Not in the terms of what would be perceived as really sexy and make me feel like I'm the man in their eyes, but what would really fill me with a lot of energy? How would I like to caress them, touch them, receive them? And that's where you're doing your part of bringing your sexual energy to the potluck. Like, you're actually following your own embodied turn on. And that's what then makes them feel like a permission of sorts to join the party and to then be led by their own body turn on. And that's such a beautiful place, instead of reenacting what you saw on porn to try to get them to think you're cool. There's so much sex people have where they leave, they don't feel connected. They feel like nothing.
Yes. And I would also identify the working to do that and the ability to do that as another demonstration of true confidence in the world.
Amen. Yeah.
Right. And so that's a way to work on confidence. And that's where, as a sex therapist, and we can land on this, it's not about doing therapy on sex. It's about how can we use sex therapeutically. And that would be one way for someone with low self-esteem to use sex to start to work on enhancing their self-esteem by approaching it that way. I love that about sex.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Man, so many beautiful things, so many scribbles.
We'll hang out again. We'll do this again soon.
No doubt, man. I appreciate your passion and your insights and all the wonderful things you're sharing with myself and my audience. You're the man.
Thanks, man.
Where can people find Dr. Chris Donaghue?
Oh, yes. Website is drchrisdonaghue.com, and my Instagram is @Dr Donahue.